So basically, we already presented in August, I think, on the critical minerals compilation itself, and the people listed up here are some of the people who've contributed to that critical minerals compilation that's now been available and downloadable on the GSQ Open Data Portal. The online tool part's mainly been done by Michael Valenta, who, yes, is my son. So this is the first for me, actually co-authoring something with my son, which has been really fun, particularly because there was no chance on earth that I'd be able to do this online tool. Okay, so, and of course, want to acknowledge that this is part of the New Economy Minerals Compilation Project, and it's been generously funded by the GSQ under the New Economy Minerals Initiative. And all these grayed out things are outputs we've talked about already. And then the output at the bottom is the one that I'm going to show today, which is really just delivery of an online tool that will allow explorers to look at different deposit types and look at their own selection and weighting of targeting criteria. And what I want to do as well is shout out very strongly to Geoscience Australia, who I essentially copied this approach from. I really like their approach. It's one that takes real geoscientific data, applies confidence, applicability, and definable sort of measures to the degree to which you want to rely on different types of data, and then develops develops overlays and combines overlays of driver, pathway, source, depositional gradient in order to gauge prospectivity. And Geoscience Australia also developed a Python tool that allows you to run that within ArcGIS. So if you can run Python and you can get it to work within ArcGIS, then you can do all this within ArcGIS, and you can also do it all within QGIS, and you can do it all within MapInfo as well if you want to. But I guess what we wanted to do was have an online tool that allowed people to play with some of these measures and say, well, actually, I don't want to use this D1, D2 criteria for the driver. I only want to use these two, or I want to change the emphasis of the different ones. And so that's really what we developed this tool for. And so you're probably already guessing this tool is not as high tech as some of the other fantastic talks we've seen today. It's really just something that allows explorers who don't generally, with a few very notable exceptions, start messing around with Python scripts within ArcGIS and so on, to access the products that we've produced and interrogate them in their own way. So these are the different models that we put in so far. So 5 different rare earth models that I presented in August, 5 different cobalt models that Paul Gao presented in August, and I'll just go to one example. There's Alkaline Systems, and basically the way this works is that you take this is basically accessing online. This is a low resolution version of the full model, but it's accessing online a multi-band, in this case 15-band data set, 15-band TIFF with all the different criteria. And over here, what you can see is, if you can read that, that's looking at source, S1, S2, S3, which don't mean anything. So you click on that and it comes up and says, well, this is the S1 criteria, non-magmatic sources of iron, copper, gold, etc. This one is alkaline igneous rocks. This one is the wavelength filtered gravity in this case. And then you can play with those. What I put up here as well is the 4 different source, driver, pathway, and depositional gradient. If you don't want all those to be 1, if you only want to look at the source, then you turn all these down to 0. And now we're only looking at that source data set. So we'll go back to the home page and look at another example. You might go to IOCG deposits. This one is the biggest one. It actually uses, it's based on Roger Skiro's model. So it uses a lot more bands. Sorry, I don't know how well you guys are, if this is going too fast over the, oh, geez.
Yeah, well, we're not looking at Queensland Network. No, it's showing up fine, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
My mouse is acting up. And because it's 32 bands, because this is a JavaScript program, we can't actually do the whole state of Queensland at the full resolution of the model. So I've done subsets of the models, and that takes a little bit to calculate as well. Hopefully it won't take too long. While we're going through that again, you can look at that and see that we've got the different criteria that are there. And there's the higher resolution model for Northwest Queensland. And again, the whole aim here is that you can take the importance, applicability, and confidence value and modify it based on what you think are important criteria. So, you know, again, I won't fiddle with this one because there's one other thing. So I've in the case of this bigger set of bands, I've divided it into Northwest Queensland, Northeast, Southeast, and Southwest Queensland. If we go back to the home page, what I want to do now is just look at an example with fewer bands to show another thing. So this is, in this case, nickel cobalt laterites. So this is Paul Gow put this together. And in this case, what we're looking at is a case where when you look at the different, so for the source overlay, we've got 4 different criteria, and I won't talk about those now other than to say that you can, you know, that's things like the stream sediment drainage basins, presence of nickel and cobalt rich units, etc. But when we actually go to the driver, what we see is that there's only one band for this one, and it's actually got a lower importance, applicability, and confidence value that's leading to an overall value of 0.1. So we don't want that driver to be at 1. We want to take it down to 0.1. And actually, it turns out in this case, we've also considered the same factor, which is actually rainfall, because we're talking about a laterite model. That one's also at a low value. So we don't want this to be overpowering everything else. So when we recalculate that, we can lower that value. And again, if you want to go back to, say, the source, and you're not interested in, you just want to see, well, what's gone into the source. In fact, I'm only interested in the source in nickel and cobalt rich units, because I'm an empirical guy. And in this case, the stream sediment data combined, and I want to take all these other ones down to 0, then you can do that, and it changes them. So it's really just a toy, but it's something that allows you to interrogate and modify those prospectivity models. And furthermore, I guess if we go back to these links, oops. It's just it's literally an HTML file to do that, and a TIFF, a multiband TIFF sitting up on the web somewhere. And you can just, if you go to that GitHub repository, basically all the HTML files that have gone into those pages are sitting there. You can open them up, link them to your own files, change the equation, do whatever you like with it. So that's me done.
With time to spare.
Yeah, don't let it be said that I never finished ahead of time.
You have never in the time that I've known you, but I think that was fantastic. So this is the first time I've seen this work as well, the online tool, because I didn't look at the emails you sent me the other day. And that is looking really, really fabulous. There's a couple of questions here. There's one from Richard Blewett, who says, do we have a plan to add gold mineral systems into the mapper? So orogenic and intrusion related gold systems. And can you export shape files from your analysis?
So this is a little, we're trying to work out how to, well, they wouldn't be shape files. They would be attributed rasters. and the data's in there. So we based this, and then it's fully acknowledged on a piece of code that was developed, another open source piece of code developed by Daniel Dufour, who's in the US. And we've been trying to work out how to extract the actual resulting image. We've been able to extract everything else from that data. So we're still playing with that part, but there aren't any shaped files as such, but the plan is to try to get it to export a geotiff with the modified prospectivity values, and also to export, if you come up with a combination of things you like, to also export the coefficients so that you can then calculate them in ArcGIS or QGIS or MapInfo or wherever you wanted to do it.
So Richard Scott has said in the chat that you could polygonize it.
Absolutely.
If you wanted. Yeah, which I agree would be great. As to the other part of Richard's question about gold mineralization, because the GSQ's funding was awarded specifically for critical minerals, new economy minerals, we haven't included gold, but it's a massive gap now in a lot of our data sets. So I think that over the next couple of years we'll work to remedy that. As next funding packages get announced in months' time. And Steve had a question from Janelle Simpson in the Q&A, but I think he's answered that now in the chat. I don't know if you want to answer the question to the audience, Steve, or...
I've just posted it to the Q&A as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. And that was about extracting statistics from the point cloud. So back to the new economy minerals online prospectivity tool. So my question then is, of course, as an exploration geologist, where are the places that we're ignoring? Is there anywhere that leaps out to you, Rick, that we should have been looking at and haven't been?
So when we ran all, like I'm thinking about, I did the rare earths part. When we ran all that, there were some areas in far north Queensland that weren't, for example, that weren't traditionally considered to be prospective. There were a whole series of areas, and I'd love to say I remember exactly where they were. The far north Queensland was definitely one of them where they were coming up as prospectivity anomalies in areas where nobody really even thought about that style of mineralization. Of course, always with those things, you have to go back and decide whether they're whether that's real or whether it's a function of the data. But the other thing that we did was do a combined model of five different deposit models and look at the combined prospectivity of those. There was certainly a number of different areas that wouldn't have been traditional kind of areas of focus. So I'd have to go back to the diagrams to point out exactly what they were, but yeah.
Well, and all of this is available. Yeah, read the report, which is available on the GSQ's open data portal, but yeah. I don't have the link handy.
It's if you just Google Queensland New Economy Minerals compilation, there'll be an SMI website and also the GSQ website that comes up, and that has the page that we've got up there for the online tool also has links to the GSQ open data portal for the various reports and data sets.